So welcome everybody to the second half of Mind Shifters Radio. And today is Wednesday, March the 16th, 2022. And their call-in number is 563-999-3581. And press 1, and that puts you into queue to talk to us. And we'd love to hear your comments and questions because that makes this your show. And we'll give Michael just a moment to get dialed in. And I'll just say to go to the website, as I usually do, whyagain.org. And you can click on, I'm trying to multitask and go there myself. So you can either click on the Start Here, which is in the upper left corner, or you can scroll down a little bit and there's a bullseye in the middle of the page. And both of those say Start Your New Life Now. They'll both take you to the same place. And that is where you will find just all kinds of tools and the worksheets, all of the worksheets for the reality management, as well as worksheets for other workshops. You'll find information to get on the app, posters that we use. There's just lots and lots of information out there. There's a section on addiction and how to break that. There is a section that says hints for those among us who have no issues. And you can actually, if you ever have done enough worksheets that you've gotten rid of all the issues that are triggered, fear, anger, grief, hostility, sadness, all of those things, then you can start doing worksheets, or you can mix them up and do them at the same time. But you can do worksheets on what you would consider good things. Oh, he makes me so happy. Oh, I just love being around him. Oh, I just absolutely adore going shopping or going to Cheesecake Factory or, whatever. All these good things that trigger happy emotions, good emotions, joyful, loving thoughts. You can do worksheets on those too, because if you think that something outside of you creates wonderful feelings inside of you, then you're as mistaken as thinking that things outside of you create the anger and the fear and the sadness and the grief and all of those. Everything is an inside job. And so you can do worksheets on good stuff. And so that puts an interesting twist to it. And so I'm going to say welcome, Michael.
Thank you, dear heart, and welcome, everybody. And once again, we're just delighted that you're here to be part of this conversation. Our conversation with Susan yesterday was awesome. So thank you, Susan, for calling in and having those questions and that conversation to open up for everybody's ears. I actually just got off the phone with Peter a few minutes ago from Sweden, and he had listened to yesterday's show and was really in appreciation for what it stirred for him. And I hope it did the same for everyone who was listening. And we're moving forward with this understanding, this conversation. Part of my speaking with Peter was the fact of, how far are we from starting to comprehend what the actuality of life is. I can think back years ago, there was a gentleman I worked with who was an ophthalmologist, and he specialized. It was pretty interesting. I've noticed some really nice shifts in my own functioning. After I worked with him, he actually used laser lights that he put into the eye to access parts of the brain and stimulate them into activity. That in a single human brain, there were more connections possible than molecules in the known universe. Not grains of sand on a beach, not grains of sand in all the beaches in the world, but molecules in the whole known universe. And if that's true, what is that a reflection of? What are we really designed for? What happens when we move this brain out of the slogging that most people call life, the hostility, the fear, the grief, the pain, the drama, the trauma, what happens when we move out of that and really become conscious operators of this absolutely magnificent device? I mean, when you think about it, How many grains of sand are on Siesta Beach in Florida? I mean, how could we count that high? And yet, and that's one little tiny beach in this whole world. How many grains of sand are there on all the beaches in the world? And that's just grains of sand, not molecules. How many molecules are there on the beaches in the world? A single grain of sand has trillions of molecules. The known universe in one brain, that's a single brain. I don't know about a married brain. I don't know how different that would be. But when you realize that, what's possible? What if we awakened? Part of the conversation with Peter, as our conversation yesterday with Susan, was about, is it possible for us to actually realize ourselves as energy systems, and because energy is eternal, actually stop engaging in the energetic patterns that cause the disintegration of this field that we call death, that we think is just normal, natural, and it's got to be, that's just part of the way it is. What if that isn't part of the way it is? What if that's just something that we've set up with not knowing, by putting hostility and fear and rage and guilt in a device designed for love? What if all death is suicide? And what if we stopped? What if no human being on earth introduced hostility and fear into their minds, into their family systems, into their interactions with themselves and each other? What if no human being left on earth engaged in any kind of disintegrative energy? And realized the possibility of being the conscious operator of a device that has more connections possible than the molecules in the known universe. Like, where could we go with that? What if we became conscious operators of that device? And then you realize that's just the brain, 2% of the weight of the whole organism. And realizing that the mind, the storage of information, operates throughout every cell in our structure. And there's a thesis that the energy field around us also operates as part of what we tend to think of as the brain, as a storage system for information. What if we just sat around in concert with each other for a week or two or a month, contemplated and brainstormed on what's really possible? And are we willing to open the door individually and collectively possible? We've shared with you before how a long time ago, early in Aria's upbringing, Jeanie and I would share the question with each other. Nini, which is what Aria calls her grandmother, Nini, I would ask her, why are we here? And Nini would say, to be love. And ask me the same question. Why are we here, Papa? To be love. And Ari would jump in and answer the question. And I think about that, and, I can't conceive of any time in my life prior to, I can't even say what stage of doing this work after how many years of doing this work, that became a question for me, a possibility for me. What if we started out with that? Where would we be today? What could we really be doing if we took seriously the idea that we are truly here to fulfill our expression as love? sounds like a lot more fun than contemplating one's navel, the old meditation question. And so I'm throwing that out to our audience today. What is something that you have conceived of on the possible end of living as a true human being? What are things that you conceived of as you move through your life? Like, gee, maybe the sole reason I'm here is to function as love. Is there anything that you would add to the conversation? You know, if you're on one of those stations where we can't see you in our control panel, our call-in number to have a conversation with us is 563-999-3581. If you call that number, you're listening to the show. And then if you push 1, raises the hand in the control panel, and Jeanie will introduce you by your area code, and we'll be having a conversation. So I would love to have a conversation with you. What does that arouse you? What does that stir up for you? Is there some possibility in our brainstorming that you could add to the conversation by pushing 1 and saying hello? What about you, Jeanie? What are your thoughts on that question? Has anything surfaced for you, sweetie?
Not right off. A hand did just now go up. So let's
great.
catch that one first. All right. It's 8:08. I believe it's Miss Roma. You're on the air.
Hi.
Aloha.
Well, I don't think there's a better question to be asking ourselves. I'm reading a book called Quantum Consciousness by Peter Smith, and
right.
It's challenging. He in one of the beginning chapters, he's quoting Carl Jung as saying that Carl Jung postulated the theory that we could never really be ourselves until we released 2 types of conditioning. The first is our childhood familial conditioning. The second is the societal conditioning that we all unconsciously embrace. And as I read that, I realized that. Yeah. And I realized that I've spent my life working on the first one, my own personal childhood familial condition. But I've never really thought about how does one work on the second, the societal conditioning, and what that is. And I waited yesterday to come on the call, but I didn't get on. But it was okay. While I was sitting there, I was thinking, well, belief in separation as war, obviously that's one societal thing that we witness all the time and that we're witnessing right now. And fear versus love, fear as a motivating energy versus love as a motivating energy, which is basically what you're asking right now. I guess what is the Course in Miracles? It says that there are only 2 things, fear and love, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's my impression, that's kind of the theme of the Course in Miracles. And, of course, enemy consciousness versus supportive, that we perceive with another culture as being the enemy, and that's all I'll talk about. But I
was going to add
Roma
a piece
first.
to that you just.
Michael, you just got muffled. Michael, you just got muffled.
Okay, is that better?
It's while he's fixing his much better. I found 2 books, Quantum Consciousness. Who did you say the author was?
Peter Smith.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
So the piece you stir up for me, and actually it was part of a conversation I had with someone earlier today who had shared with me that he listened to the show yesterday and realized as he was just investigating his own mind, and he'd heard me over the years talk about this idea of stepping into eternal life, and he shared with me as a result of the conversation yesterday that he had the realization, it was a totally unconscious thing for him, but that he had the realization, and this would fit in that category of the cultural conditioning that we have, was that his thought was, I hope Michael Rice fails at this idea of stepping into eternal life. I thought it was pretty courageous for him to share that with me, because then I can win. The cultural conditioning that somebody else has to lose for us to win, which I thought was really an interesting, as opposed to, stepping into, can I lift everyone so that especially seeing as how we're all connected, and it ties to your thought there of the separation, is that recognize we're all connected, that each one of us that can lift up another lifts ourselves as well.
Yeah,
Jeanie,
right.
You're right about that. It's very true, that cultural conditioning thing, that just thoughts, basically thought disorders. Mind energy, if we go back to the opening words in the book of John that do not say, in the beginning was the Word and the Word became flesh, but say, in the beginning was the mind energy, and the mind energy became flesh, and literally that mind energy we buy into, that we accept, that we engage in, literally becomes molecular in our structures, in our bodies. It becomes chemical in our structures. And to face all of that and to throw it out, to remove it, to forgive it is a pretty profound insight that we can do that our lives can be about doing that. And to me, that's the whole bottom line of this work.
That's the second volume of consciousness. I mean, we each have to. We can choose. Each of us can choose to heal our own personal issues. But then the second chapter is going to be, okay, now how do we approach healing the global consciousness?
Right. Racial and otherwise.
Exactly. And you think about it, 100 years ago, people were still beating their children, thinking that they were being good parents in disciplining, I mean,
people are still beating their children.
Yeah. You would be in a position to know that.
Say again?
You would be in a position to know that. I'm not.
Yeah, get to hear it all the time.
Oh, God. Well, okay, but you're hearing it from individuals who may be 50 years old, who were beaten 50 years ago, right?
No. Actually, Jeanie and I were in a large grocery store back about, this is maybe 4 or 5 years ago, and we were in line behind a woman who had a small child that was maybe 2.5, maybe 3 at the outside. And Mom was buying grapes, and he wanted some grapes, and it became a big fuss, a big fight about grapes, crying and all of that. And she checked out. We were right behind her. And she walked forward and was organizing things in her cart. I, at that point, had gone out to get the car and bring it around front, and Jeanie came out afterward. And she was standing waiting for me when this mother rolled her cart out with her son in it. And what she heard from her son to the mother was the words, "Please, Mom, don't beat me. I love you." This is a kid of 2.5, 3. "Please, Mom, don't beat me. I love you."
But that's a transition stage. And I think that each of us can take some personal responsibility for the last 3 words. that child somehow has picked up on. I don't think a child 100 years ago would have said that.
I'll go with that thought.
I wasn't alive 100 years ago, so I'm not really an expert. But
right.
I'm just affirming.
We can step into conjecture.
Yeah, well, whatever. I mean, the mind is always trying to understand things, and half the time it's making stuff up.
Yeah.
Just understand.
And that's one of the things that we do is we make stuff up in order to oftentimes just to rationalize our realities and avoid the actuality of what's going on. And sometimes that can be our intuition, I think, kicking in to help us to advance, to move forward.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that is the whole point, is to continue advancing, to continue moving forward, to continue releasing the personal or cultural tradition, programming, which is anything but love.
Yeah. I was listening to, or actually reading an article today, and they quoted an African proverb. And you'd look at the global disparity between people's lives and how those who are, supposedly, quote unquote, living on top of the pile and those who are at the bottom of the pile, and stories that each tells to rationalize. And this African proverb kind of got my attention, and it actually has got me started on writing an article. And the proverb says this: until the story of the hunt is told from the perspective of the lion, the story will always glorify the hunter. Can we embrace the energetic patterns of all of the world, of all of the suffering, of all of the pain, of all of the beauty, of all of the glory? Can we embrace all of that from a perspective of, rather than prejudice, conscious, active, present love, and move forward in mind energy to what's really possible for this, in this organism that has the ability to make more connections than all of the molecules in the known universe, just what's possible. And I think it's a powerful thing to brainstorm about, and thank you for your thoughts and your input. It really does open the space on another level. It's awesome.
Yeah, that's great. Yes. I'm very clear. I can feel it in my gut that we're sitting right in the middle of it.
Mm-hmm.
We're sitting right in the middle of the battlefield.
Yeah. And I get, just speaking to you personally now, you've, in the last year or two, you've gone through a lot of levels of confusion and forgiveness work, and I get your energetic clarity of mind that you have right now. And that's awesome, because you've been, proclaiming that you don't have that. And I get you got that right now, and that's awesome.
Well, I'm actually more embodied, literally, energetically embodied in my physical being than I think I've ever been. And by that I mean consciously, my consciousness, that I would witness and notice what's going on in my gut and be able to actually share it. And I'm pleased.
Nice. Well, we're pleased for you, and share and extend that.
Yeah.
Let's extend that to all the world.
Oh yes. Every single. Well, it's just like our bodies are made up of trillions of little organisms, energetic organisms, whether they're atoms or cells, or on what level, they just keep going. But so is humanity.
Well,
and every
what
single
medicine?
one counts.
Go ahead.
Every single human being counts and has a purpose and a job and makes a difference. Just as every energetic organism in our bodies do. So it's just
and has a right to life.
Yeah, it's just it's a fractal. Have you seen those beautiful fractals, the Mandelbrot fractals, where you can go deeper and deeper into it or come back out deeper and deeper out of it, and it's the same. It's a repetition of the same thing all the time. And what that repetition is, as we're affirming, is infinite love, infinite eternal love.
Yeah. Good thought. My mind is now moving in another direction from, the number of connections of as there are molecules in the known universe, and then as you bring up this idea of, the organisms that live within us, what medicine is now telling us is that approximately 80% of the DNA held in any one human form is not human. 80% of your DNA, my DNA, Jeannie's DNA, every listener that's listening is not human DNA. It's those organisms, this community that has been built for us to express through, that's supported by so many different types of bacteria and viruses and who knows what, that allow us life. And when you think of it, you push your mind in that direction, there's a whole other exploration to be done and possibility that adds to the conversation. And if you're out there in listener land and that stimulates some thoughts for you, push one. Let's join this conversation. Let's expand it. I mean, who knows where we end up here today?
Yeah, it's great. It's great. Okay. All right.
It is.
Yeah.
Michael, I just thought, and we do have another hand up, but I just thought, share, going back to the person that said they hoped you were wrong about eternal life because then they would be right. There's a thing that you often offer about, what if if you're right, but then if you're incorrect and you don't make it, then what? And I really like that. If you'd share that.
I'm not sure exactly what you're heading towards, sweetie, so why don't you go ahead and share it?
Well, I'm not sure how you say it exactly, but it's basically like, if you're right, then you have progressed and healed and done all those things and moved into eternal life. But if you're incorrect and you don't make it, then what have you lost? You've made your life better.
Oh, exactly. Yeah, there's nothing to, if it's not true, going ahead and doing it anyway is going to do nothing but benefit you. If it is true, then not doing it is going to be a problem, for sure. Actually, this morning I was kind of appreciating the conversation with Susan in particular yesterday, and I sent her a text, and here's what I said to her. Thank you for the conversation yesterday. It left me with a taste of sweetness in my mouth and tears and a feeling for whatever part of eternity we get to occupy. Perhaps we will succeed. Perhaps we will fail. Perhaps we're opening a door we may never pass through. Perhaps someone will. I cherish you and thank you for playing with us. You're such a gift. Thank you, Susan. What's possible if we can? Go ahead.
I was just going to say, and the person that was in the chat room the last few days and is in there now too, actually commented yesterday that you were just phenomenal, Susan, in the questions you were asking and the thoughts that you were provoking. So many people enjoyed your conversation yesterday.
Yeah, it's nice to have the kind of brilliance on our team that we have. Thank you, Susan. Thank you, Roma. Thank you, Jeanie. Thank you, Yeshua, for that Aramaic genius. And we put out a full invitation. You know, we still don't know. We don't have a full translation of the Kabor's manuscript yet, so we still don't know what we don't know that could be said in the Aramaic language. And so we trust that teaching, and we invite deeper and deeper understanding to come to us individually and collectively as we continue to move forward with the tools that we have come to understand. But we don't know what was possible, what had been thought of in the Aramaic language that we haven't been able to decode or translate yet. So who knows where that goes? Who knows what that looks like? And the person who came forward with and shared that thought about, you know, hoping you lose, because, and it wasn't so much that would help him to win, but then he wouldn't have to be the loser. So, and it led to us connecting, extending to each other full, total support for achieving that goal. So, you know, the power that can come out of us being able to acknowledge that sometimes thoughts that are so deeply embedded that we hardly pay attention to them or hardly hear them, or when they do move, we sort of pretend they're not really there. So let's go ahead and say hello to whoever else is on the call, sweetie.
Awesome. The next one is 541. I believe it's Celinda. Welcome.
Hello. I think you've got me
nailed.
Welcome,
young lady.
It's either me or Julie. Anyway, yes, I want to thank Peter, too, as well as you, Roma, and Susan for yesterday, and Jeanie, and Michael, and Aria, Rain, and all of us. I want to thank all of us. I had a couple of thoughts. Are you ready for another African proverb?
Oh, please.
When there are no enemies within, the enemy out there can do us no harm. And also I wanted to thank Roma for her fractal statement. Thank you, Roma, because it reminded me of a hologram, which that's what we are. We're not only, this is only a metaphor now, we're not only liquid crystal diodes, but we're also holograms, which is such an exciting metaphor for me, to be a hologram, because a hologram I just made up, if I understand correctly, every possible part is a complete whole of the whole, and it can go on forever.
Yes, and you remind me of still another African proverb that I used to speak a lot. I haven't spoken on the show in quite a while, I don't think, but there's another really powerful one that says that if you want to go quickly, go alone. But if you want to go far, go together. And for me, that's what this show is about.
Right. I also have a couple of other thoughts that I would like. When Peter mentioned about win-lose, or the if in order for me to not fail, you have to fail, which reminds me of when we took our evaluation sheets, and one of mine was in the honors, that my truth and my honor of others was high, but my honor of self was really low.
Right.
I've realized today, as I am finishing my processing with my friend, that if I'm right, I can understand why being right and being wrong is deadly. that it's one of the fruits, one of the poisons of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, which is the tree of death. And that if I'm right, and if I'm vested in being right, basically I am entitled. And if I'm wrong and vested in being wrong, then basically I am worthless. And I realized how absolutely essential it is for me to get out of being right in the tussle, in the war of right and wrong, and into true support, which you have been offering so freely and helpfully, of being in a win-win arena, where possibly the goal that each one of us has is not as beneficial a goal as what comes out of that arena of supporting each other and being willing to allow each other until we come to a conclusion that is either a win-win, or we, with love, allow each other to go another way.
Holding the space. And just to be clear, I had spoken about a conversation I had with Peter, but I hadn't said that part of the conversation was from Peter. That was a conversation I had with someone, but I wasn't referring to that conversation as being part of Peter's conversation. Just to be clear.
I misunderstood. Yeah.
No,
so,
okay.
Well, my statement still stands, but I apologize that I attributed it to Peter. And I have one other thought that I want to share in the context of what Roma said about we're in the middle of it. And as I've mentioned before, I work with your work and Dr. Tim's work, and I also really appreciate the work of Neil Douglas Klotz in his work with the Aramaic Gospel. And one of the things that I love about the CDs I have is he happens to mention in there, in relation to the Lord's Prayer and in relation also to the Beatitudes, I have both CD sets, that the Middle East out there is merely a reflection of the Middle East within our own hearts. So that which is manifested, exactly, it is the macrocosmic blow-up of our inner Middle East. We can't even get our inner board of directors to come together and talk with each other very often. So it's a great metaphor, I think, and it has been very helpful for me. If I want my Middle East out there to evaporate, I'd better do the work on my Middle East in here first, and then go talk.
Be the change you want to see in the world.
That's right, and not that which we want to leave behind, right?
Exactly.
So where is my focus?
Exactly.
Yeah, and I don't remember who was talking with you. It might have been Anne talking to Dr. Tim in the Way of Mastery classes we're taking on his show, but she said something about realizing that she was, every time, whenever she dipped into her stream of consciousness, if I understood Anne correctly, that she was, it was a negative. And that is also what I'm experiencing now, is every time I happen to wake up and get conscious about what's going on in that stream of consciousness, quote unquote, in my mind, I am appalled. It's about 90%.
Well, that's just the work. That's just the work we need to do. Remember that quote from Francois Fenelon about what we're going to uncover and how shocked we're going to be. I can't believe that's inside of me. You got to be kidding me. But it is.
Inside of myself. Once I stop justifying it, denying it, and excusing it. Oh,
exactly.
So, blessings on us all. I'm just so grateful to have this community.
Sweet. I'm in full agreement with you. Thank you.
Well, it's a true blessing, Michael and Jeanie. And I was just wondering, Jeanie, if you ever got my you and Michael, the two of you, if you ever got my revision.
I did, and I really like it.
Yes, we've been talking about it. Yes.
And once we get it final here, then we're going to put it on the website, and we'll send back to you.
That would be beautiful, because I'm waiting to respond. It's a time for me to speak up and honestly do some responsibility communication with my friend. And this is the hardest thing I've ever done, Michael and Jeanie, because I have stuffed my voice for 77 years, so, or only let it out in anger. So this is a real challenge. I can use your support.
You've got it.
So as soon as that revision, Jeanie, as you send that back to me, then I will proceed with my responsibility communication, because I'm concerned that I had to do my own work first. But I'm also concerned that Joe's maybe, possibly, sitting on a hot seat thinking that I've blown her off. And I don't want that to happen. I do not want to blow her off. I've blown off too many people in my life. So,
we'll be back to you. Yep, you are.
All right, complete. Thank you.
Cool. All right, blessings.
And we have another hand, and I believe this is Susan, 610. You're on the air.
Hi, guys. Thanks, Michael. All those nice texts and everything. It is so interesting about how all of us are zeroing in on the same kind of issue. And I was wondering why that person said to you, I wanted you to be wrong, and you added so that he or she could feel they are right. And then I thought, well, what happened in there that a person would feel they needed to get into the stance of us and them, I'm right, you're wrong, I'm right. And I was thinking back to how I felt when you have talked about the living eternally many times.
Yes.
And I've always felt a little bit backed against the wall. And then, which your friend was saying, I didn't know why I felt as if somehow I'm not going to make it, I'm wrong, and you're right. But then you said one time, and this was a complete release, you said, well, maybe it's true and maybe it isn't, but we live better and do better if we go with that idea rather than the other one. And Jeanie has enforced that part of it. As soon as you said that, it was as if you were saying, I don't know if I'm right or wrong. I just invite us all to head in that direction. And I took a big breath and I thought, what just happened? That was like a tiny transaction of something that happens all the time. And it reminded me of my bad interaction with this man who was so mad at me for letting my dog run free in the park. I didn't tell you the story, but it's the usual. We've had it before. The whole cadre of us who early in the morning when no one's in the park, we let our dogs off and they tear around and they play. And this guy started signaling us from across a parking lot, waving his arms, put your dogs on a leash. And we immediately did. We always do. And we keep our eyes peeled for people who might be frightened or fragile. We stick them on the leash as fast. And we've talked to the rangers about it. And the ranger said, look, if you're in the park early and no one's around, go ahead and let them run. I know they need to run, but be mindful. So we get caught sometimes. We aren't mindful. If we had bad dogs, we wouldn't let them off the leash. But in any case, so we put them on the leash, and I'm walking in the neighborhood, and this man approaches me. And I said, you're the guy who was yelling at me. And he said, yeah, don't you read the signs? I was immediately triggered. I felt like back against the wall again. I wanted to be right. Mm-hmm. And instead of just, this is another question, but I'd like words. I would like a new vocabulary so that I can be disarmed and disarm the other guy. But what Celinda's talking about with her friend, it's the same issue. The other guy or you say and think, I am right and you're wrong. And that is a killer thought. It's not a gracious thought. It's not an allowing thought. It's not a gentle thought. And so when you said, it may or may not be true, I thought, okay, then I can point in that direction and work toward that too. The other way, I just felt bad about myself. So I just wanted to say, sometimes you get on a roll and you say things like, some people just don't believe this, and some people do this and some do that. And then I feel I'm losing my breath again. I can't quite breathe. And you are a genius. You've invented these tools, and you probably get frustrated like the rest of us if some of us don't do them or we don't follow the directions. And you're right, and I think you're right. I'm just saying that doesn't work so well for a lot of people who aren't there yet. And I hope it's okay I say all that.
Perfectly fine with me. Absolutely.
Okay. It's just a difference in presentation, and I want to learn how to make the gentle presentation, which you were doing when you said, well, I'm aiming in that. And I did ask you pointedly, how's it going for you? And you softened right away, and you said, well, there's a lot of generational crap down there, and I don't know if I can do it, but I'm working on it. And I thought, there it is. There's a truth, a reality, something I could really accept. Now, maybe there's another layer there and I'm sure there is. So what if you're right and I'm not there yet? So what? Why am I reacting? That's still there to look at. Believe me, I know that.
And Michael often says, whether he makes it or not doesn't mean that the truth isn't true.
That's true too.
Right.
Yeah, I can understand that. But that's allowing human a margin of human error or something there that makes it all possible for us to do it all together rather than being us and them all over again.
Yeah, and there's a slight refinement. Again, if we listen to Shakespeare says, my words fly up, my thoughts remain below. And when I'm really listening to my words, I can keep going into deeper and deeper levels of my own mind. And when I've got a team that feeds back my words, that can serve the same purpose. And the words that this person spoke to me were actually about the wish that I would fail. And you started a different conversation than being about the wish to fail, but rather the wish to win or be right.
Aren't they the same? You said
no.
it.
Well, I wouldn't take them as the same.
Well, when you added afterwards when he or she said, I wish you'd fail, somebody said, that's because they're afraid of being wrong. So they don't want you to fail, except they want to live. And somehow if you fail, they have a chance. Whereas if you succeed, they're outside the circle and won't. So I still think they're the same. Tell me how they're different.
No, I can hear that and go along with that. But it just might, listening to the words and what we hear is sometimes not what is said. And if it points us in a direction of another piece of work, if our listening is different than what the speaking was, it can sometimes point us into something that's been triggered. That's another subtle little piece of work for me to do. That's just what I notice about my own mind. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, if somebody told me I want you to fail, that would be my work. Definitely. I wouldn't want to hear that. But if you look further under their meaning, which you did, you ended up understanding that they couldn't bear for you to succeed because they didn't think they ever could, and you made them. If you failed, then they weren't wrong. If you succeeded, they were wrong. Somehow there was a little switcheroo transaction in there.
Yeah.
So
and my thought is
the gracefulness of when you said, well, when I asked you, how are you doing? You got really honest. You just said, well, now that you mention it, I'm trying, and it was just such a moment of grace for me. That doesn't mean I don't have work to do. I understand that. But instead of fighting with me, you stepped away a little bit and understood, I think, where I was coming from, and were very gracious about it, and I appreciate that.
Cool. Well, I appreciate your questioning mind. And I have a mind shifter for you.
Okay. All right. I'll get my pencil. I've got my pencil. Okay, shoot.
I love it when people reach out to hold me accountable. I love it when people reach out to hold me accountable for my misbehavior.
Oh, wow. Wow, I don't even understand that one, Michael.
That's the first thing to go on the right side of the page.
Okay.
Well, I noticed that a theme in many of our conversations is how you language about yourself, about your poor behavior.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Or in this case with the gentleman with the dog, here he is screaming and yelling because you broke the rules, you misbehaved. And your theme, your conversation often comes back to you having that same conversation about yourself, about how you haven't done it properly or you haven't done it well. So it just seems that mind shifter might be a useful one
really
to delve into, and maybe touch into some of those power person messages that you were given about
that's really good.
What your power person perceived as your misbehavior.
That's really good. Okay,
because I look at you. I mean, I listen to you. I've listened to you for years, and I listen to the things you do in your world, the things you do for yourself, the things you do for people, for this, for the immigrant community, for the people in your church community, and it's awesome. And yet, I hear you so often diminish yourself, even though that's who you are. And so I, for one, stand as a vote for you to shed that whole messaging you were given about no matter what you do, it's never enough. Because it is. You're a powerful role model in the world.
Thanks, Michael. Well, I
and your
think
music.
Fenelon, yeah, thanks. And thanks. That's incredible. I think of Fenelon, and I'm not backing off from what you said. I'm really hearing that. But it's also true. The shadow is sitting right there, and it's good that it is, because then you're having a good look at it. But I need tools right now. Like, I wished I was standing in the park looking at this man, breathing and saying to myself, hold him in a space of love. Hold him in a space of love. I screwed it up. I know, I'm demeaning myself. I got into a pissing match with him. I said a couple of things to him. I wasn't up to it. I wish I had the words that would have soothed him, but not made me lose and make me wrong either. I wonder if there are words. We need a book of phrases to grab onto when we're in bad trouble and we have nowhere to turn. We're trapped.
Well,
I mean, Belinda probably needed some words too. When her friend was yelling at her, she was trying to hold the space, and she's still working on it. And I'm with her totally. That would have been so hard. So anyway, speak.
Well, what comes up for me in this aspect of the conversation is the huge offense that was done by the Greeks when they translated a passage of Yeshua's words that told us that the first law was we had to love our neighbor.
Mm-hmm.
And how destructive an instruction that is.
Mm-hmm.
Because each of us holds how many different forms of rage and hatred and vengeance and grief and pain. And somebody comes along and says, well, here, the primo teacher that you admire most says, here's what you need to do, which he never said. But when we were told that, and we don't live up to it, now there's the ultimate of failure. Here I am. I say, I want to follow this man. I want to do what he said, and he said I need to love my neighbor. And here I am. I'm in a pissing contest with my neighbor.
Mm-hmm.
And if they just told us the truth about what he'd said, and that is that the thing to strive for is to function as and to be love rather than trying to do love, and obviously failing, because until I've resolved literally every form of hostility, fear, rage, guilt, grief, drama, and trauma in me, if I'm efforting to do love, I'm going to draw, because that's what's in me. I'm going to draw somebody that's going to resonate that in me, and I'm going to fail.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas if I realize that what he really said was that your efforts, your work should be in the direction of maintaining this gateway called Rachma active and open so that love enters your form. And then, the person who comes along and rages and I come up with the biggest pissing contest the world has ever seen, and my efforting is not to love them, but to be with what's moving in me and to function as love, there's my next healing opportunity. The difference to me in those two instructions is just so monstrous. How many people down through history said, I'm going to do what he said, I'm going to love my neighbor, and they did every kind of rage and grief and pain possible instead of what they said they were going to do, and as a result felt guilty and like failures. When if we'd been given the instruction he actually gave, Rachma's failed again. Here's the next layer that I need to heal in order to clean up my field. It's like the whole game would transform around that single thought.
I totally agree with you, Michael.
And so this man gave you an opportunity to heal the next layer so that you can show up as who you really are and choose to show up as love. A gift.
All right, Michael. I'm going to argue with you for 1 second because I know the time is short. I agree with you totally.
1 second is going to be.
I don't know when it's going to be that I don't know when it's going to be that I'll be clear enough to face a man like that in the park. I want to be able to have some phrases to fake it with him so that at least I can not do damage, and then I'll do my work for sure. So.
But if what comes up in you is a damaged part of your mind, there's your next piece of work. And it's in that instant, sometimes 10 times a minute that work needs to be done. And I think this would be a beautiful conversation to continue. It just told me we were down to 10 seconds. But let's continue this conversation tomorrow right on this point. Okay?
Okay. Good.
Sweet. I appreciate you. Blessings, everybody. Have the best year yet of your eternal life. It's an awesome gift to give the world. Bye-bye.